And welcome to another edition of Hockey at the Hall. This is your host, Anthony DiPaolo.
And I'm Sean Clancy.
Well, it's finally that time. The NHL season has started.
It's about time. It was the longest September of my life. Probably was for a lot of you hockey fans, too. September, by the way, is the worst month of the year.
Well, I guess I can attest to that too, but anyway, it is now October, and 3 NHL games have gone underway. The Toronto Maple Leafs have defeated the Montreal Canadiens, and the Winnipeg Jets face off against the Edmonton Oilers, the Jets winning that one, and the Chicago Blackhawks, the defending Stanley Cup champions, have won in their home opener versus the Washington Capitals. Sean, what were your impressions on those games?
They were all great games. They were all high-scoring games, just like I told you they would be. I watched all three, well, as much as I could of all three of them. And especially the Chicago-Washington game. The offense there looked scary from both sides. Kane, Ovechkin, they were both on top of their games. And then it was Grabovski for Washington that had a hat trick in his debut with the Washington Capitals.
And
so
picked
good
up
for
an
him.
assist. So
and
he's
picked up an assist.
He's on pace for 246 goals and 82 assists.
And then...
Hey, first game of the season. Now we can make conclusions on the rest of the season.
Would you work that out before we started here?
No, I just learned from the best, E.J. Hradek and
The
the
best,
gang.
E.J. Hradek. And then there was the Toronto game. Lars Eller had a big game for Montreal, but it was Toronto picking up the W.
It was actually that, before you go any further, that one line from the Montreal Canadiens, Lars Eller, Brendan Gallagher, and Alex Galchenyuk. I think now they are the egg line, and they look pretty good for Montreal, at least for the offense being in that losing effort.
The egg line?
Yep, Eller, Galchenyuk, Gallagher. I know in New Jersey there can only be one egg line.
There's only one egg line.
Elias Gomez and Gianta, but if you want to go by last names, might as well.
And then there's the Winnipeg-Edmonton game, and who'd I pick? How do you say his name again?
Scheifele.
Mark Scheifele on Winnipeg. You've probably never heard of this kid, but he's going to win Rookie of the Year. And what did he do? He opened the scoring for Winnipeg in that game. He had a beautiful wrister right over Dubnyk's shoulder there.
That was a tough goal by Dubnyk. Sean, I think you can attest as a goalie. It looked like he had a pretty tough game because Scheifele, when he came in, had a very sharp angle shot, and he didn't get that near side. He got it over the far side in the glove, and Dubnyk looked like his left shoulder was down, and really a tough goal for him to give up.
Well, the goalies usually start off a little bit slow earlier in the season. You tend to see some higher scoring games, at least from what I've noticed. You remember last year when we watched the Chicago-LA game to start the season, and after Jonathan Quick had that incredible run in the Stanley Cup, he looked completely unbeatable. But
he looked
then,
clueless that game. I remember
that first game, yeah, he didn't look good.
He tried the Elliott spinorama and then gave up a goal.
And for local teams, obviously Lundqvist has not looked very good whatsoever in the preseason. I just want to throw that in there. Anyway, though, it was that was another good. Did you watch the whole game, the Edmonton-Winnipeg? Did you watch the end?
No, I did not.
Edmonton had a 4-2 lead, and they blew it. Winnipeg came back. Dubnyk gave up, you might call them some soft goals that got by Dubnyk. One of them was a slap shot from almost back at the blue line. A bit of a screen. But, another high-scoring game. And I remember I told you, Anthony, Chicago, Washington, Winnipeg, and Edmonton are all going to be very high-scoring teams this year.
And going back to the Washington-Chicago game, I can really attest to that. Washington's power play, despite losing by 2 goals, I think one of them was an empty netter. But point is, though, the Capitals' power play looked deadly. I think
they're savages.
3 goals on the power play. Ovechkin got 1. You mentioned before, Grabovski got 3. Mike Green, I think, picked up another. No, he was getting. Mike Green was getting the assists, and I believe Grabovski deflected a couple in.
Yeah, that's right, because Grabovski had the hat trick and Ovechkin had a goal. So, but I know Greener did pick up at least 1 assist in that game, and like you said, the power play looks pretty scary. They had the top-ranked power play in the league last year. Washington did. It was operating at 28% or something. It looks like it could even get better this year if Ovechkin stays on top of his game the entire season. Because remember, he didn't get going, Ovechkin, until about the midway point of last season. He started off very slow.
He actually scored 23 goals in his last 23 games in the shortened season. So, yes.
There you go.
I think he's coming off a very good hot streak last season. And, I said this when he was in the slump that when Ovechkin was doing really bad, everybody was questioning him, and I knew right away. It's like he's too good of a player to be in a slump like that forever, and he found his touch again, switching to the right wing under Adam Oates. I think that was also a big thing, and now he seems to have found his groove again. So good for him.
Now there's. I want to go back to the Toronto-Montreal game. There's two things I want to mention. One of them good, one of them not so good. The first one being that the first goal of the NHL regular season was scored by James Van Riemsdyk,
New Jersey native,
of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Middletown native. He's he lives right down the block from me. He went to CBA Academy, which is one of the high schools that I toured when I was in 8th grade, when I was just coming up, when I was a little tyke. And but he opened up the scoring. He stuffed one right under there, the pad of Carey Price. So it's good stuff. Now, the other thing that I need to talk about from the Toronto-Montreal game, fighting in hockey, Anthony.
Yes,
For some
I
reason,
knew you
there's
were
some
gonna
big
talk about
debate.
that.
If you didn't see the game, if you haven't heard the highlights, if you haven't seen the highlights or heard about what happened, George Parros, he is on the Montreal Canadiens. He had a fight with Maple Leafs
Colton
tough
Orr.
guy, Colton Orr. And what happened was Colton Orr went down. He kind of pulled Parros down with him. Parros went over Colton Orr, and Parros, who had his hands tied up in, holding on to Colton Orr, he ended up going face first into the ice. It looked like kind of like his mouth area, his nose is what went crashing in first. So he had to leave on a stretcher. From what I'm hearing, he's out of the hospital now, but he has a concussion, so he's going to miss some time. But it's pretty brutal when you look at it. And as if these people that are so against fighting in the National Hockey League need anything else to spark their idiocracy, now this happens. So now the whole debate, and like I said, fighting is already on its way out of the NHL because they have the rule where you have to wear a visor. That's being grandfathered in. It's mandatory now. George Parros was not wearing a visor because he doesn't have to.
He's part of the grandfather clause.
Yes. And then there's the idiots arguing that, if you had a visor on, a visor would have stopped his jaw and his mouth from crashing into the ice. Right? No, it wouldn't have.
No.
So, but now with the combination of the visor rule and the rule where you can't take your helmet off prior to a fight, nobody's going to be fighting anymore. Because all they're going to do, and doesn't it cause more injuries, Anthony, if you're going to leave your helmet on for a fight and players are going to be fighting with helmets on,
Broken hands
and they're just going to be
galore.
punching each other in the helmet? That's not going to cause more injuries. These players have been fighting for 100 years in the National Hockey League, and they understand the risk. So if they're going to take their helmets off, they understand the risk of them hitting their head on the ice, which is a very rare occurrence.
And besides, that was a freak accident, too. You really don't see that often where a player goes face planting first because, I mean, as much as quote-unquote hostility there is in a fight, I guess, to a casual fan that hasn't watched the game that much, I mean, these players have, I guess, an unwritten honor code. You see players going down. They don't really punch them on their way down, and they try not to really slam each other down face first onto the ice like that. I mean, even Colton Orr knew that he didn't mean to do it, or you could see that he didn't mean to do that.
But it happens. Yes, fighting is dangerous. I understand. Fighting is dangerous, but hockey in general is dangerous. Don't you think a bunch of people slapping around a frozen piece of rubber into crowds of people, doesn't that seem like a somewhat dangerous activity, but we like it?
Exactly.
Fighting is just as dangerous. So now this opens up the whole visor debate, the fighting debate.
You were saying, too, how there were a couple fights yesterday, and the players took off their helmets anyway.
There was I forget which game it was, which players were fighting, but before the fight even started, both players took off their helmets, and I see that happening a lot, to be quite honest, especially if they keep this stupid visor rule in. Players are going to take their helmets off anyway, because as long as both players take their helmets off, it's going to be coincidental minor, so it's not going to result in any sort of power play.
I actually think, though, maybe, Sean, if the players just keep doing that and that trend keeps up, and they just say, to hell with the rule, then maybe the league will reevaluate it, and honestly, too, if anything, you could also see the retractable visors coming into play, too. So, I mean, I think that's a possibility. I don't know, but I'm not too sure if fighting is really going to be seeing its way out of the league just in the near foreseeable future.
Well, if you keep letting the league make up these stupid rules, just like you said, there's what's the word you just used?
Retractable?
No, not about the visors. About the league, like looking at a rule and maybe
reevaluating.
Reevaluating.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
So there's a lot of rules that the league should reevaluate. Like I said, the helmets and the visors are both pretty stupid rules. The hybrid icing went into effect now, so that's another thing. As if these refs need another judgment call rule. So that's going to cause nothing but problems. And I don't get the concept. Riddle me this, Anthony. Wait. No, I understand the rule, but I don't understand the concept behind it. So riddle me this. If the players are going down to chase the puck, it's behind the goal line, and if the offensive player is leading the race to get the puck, then they will not blow the whistle, correct?
That's right.
Okay, so even if the offensive player has just a small step on the defensive player, they will let them race, correct?
Yes.
So isn't that what causes the collisions along the boards in the first place? They blow the whistle early if the offensive player is not in contention and the defensive player is going to touch the puck. They blow the whistle early. But that's not what results in collisions along the boards anyway. What results in collisions along the boards is when there's races, when the offensive player has a step on the defensive player, and then they both go crashing into the boards for the puck. That's what causes the collision. So we're not eliminating any collisions, but we are placing another judgment call on the referees, just another thing for them to mess up.
Well,
they can't even handle the black and white calls as
just
it
to play devil's advocate, I think now that they're changing the focus of going for the puck to just going to the dots first, so I guess maybe like once the forward actually reaches the dots, they might slow down a bit, and because they're not going for the puck, they won't try to hit each other before they get there. I mean, still, I agree with you. I think there's still plenty of opportunities for other nasty injuries. The two players that broke their femurs were Taylor Faden and Curtis Foster, and I mean, but here's another thing too.
And that's another rare occurrence, though.
Yeah, no.
If this player safety's getting out of control.
Also, you brought up how there's a penalty if you hit somebody on an icing call. After that, there have been no more broken femurs or broken legs after that rule is implemented. So I thought it was a good deterrent. But another rule change is that they took away the attainable pass. So let's say Marek Zidlicky makes a pass to Damian Brunner, trying to make a nice outlet pass. It misses his stick and it goes down past the red line. The rule would be if the referee thought that Brunner could have gotten the puck, they would wave off the icing because it was an attainable pass. Now they're taking away that rule, and they're saying that unless Brunner would actually touch the puck, then it would be an icing because they want to take away that judgment call.
So they took away a judgment call and they added another one.
Yeah, no, because
great job.
They said that they wanted it to be black and white. I think it was Bill Daly, the deputy commissioner. Don't quote me on that, but whoever said that they wanted it to be more black and white.
Probably was him.
And then
he says a lot of stupid things.
Then they put in the hybrid icing. So I agree with you, Sean. They're really kind of hypocritical. They're really having a conflict of interest there. But I mean, enough with that.
Bill Daly has a tendency. If you don't know who Bill Daly is, he's Gary Bettman's right-hand man. He looks like a fat version of that guy from The Shield. You ever watch The Shield? Good show. I couldn't get into it, though. There's too many other good shows I had to watch. Anyway, what else was I... what's the other one now with you can't tuck the jersey in? So that's just another unbelievably... Why they even bother with... You know what this is, Anthony? It's a precursor to advertisements on the jerseys. This is the first step of putting advertisements on the jerseys, just like the Russians over there, just like all the other leagues that have advertisements on the jerseys, the circles in the ice, the refs, the glass, the ceiling, the banners, the trophies, the fans. One of these days,
Sponsors
give it 20
on the
years.
fans.
Yeah, one of these days they're going to stamp you in as you go walking through the entrance. They're going to say, stick out your hand. They're going to stamp on their little Nike logo.
Oh, no.
That's the day I draw the line. But getting back to fighting. Fighting is a part of hockey, is it not, Anthony?
It is a part of hockey.
It is a part of hockey. And all these idiots that argue that it shouldn't be, that they don't want fighting in the league, that it's nothing but a black mark on hockey, these people are not hockey fans. There's some idiot on, his name's Ken Campbell. He's on Twitter. You can go find him. He's one of these crazy anti-fighting people, and he's old, so you think he would be pro-fighting, because he's old, but he's not. He's anti-fighting. And he tweeted something yesterday that was like, what a horrible ending to an otherwise great night, talking about the George Parros thing in Montreal. And And I would take the time to argue with this guy, but he's one of those Twitter whores too. And I can't write anything that gets my point across with like a 20-word limit or something.
140, yeah. Characters.
That's characters, yeah.
Okay.
Adds up to about 20 words. Twitter's stupid.
I don't know, but I mean, come on. Parros has the mustache too. It looks like that absorbs some of the impact. He'll be back in no time. Can't keep a good stash down.
Well, let's hope. It was a terrible accident, and you hope you never see it. But it happens in hockey. It's a dangerous sport, and this player safety is getting out of control. It's affecting the game too much. Let the players fight. Let the players race for the puck. That's what hockey is. It's a bunch of guys chasing around a puck. So now we're gonna make rules so you don't get hurt.
I think I also saw somewhere that these rules, even though they're in effect this season, that they're not completely made up on it yet. I think they're going to see how it is for a season or two. And hopefully if, there's enough of an outcry and that these players don't like it, then maybe in the near future they'll overturn the rule. But we'll see.
I read something about the icing on NationalHockeyLeague.com that said, and this was like in the icing article, so I know it has something to do with icing, but it doesn't make any sense. They said if the ref blows the whistle on one of these hybrid icings or whatever, but the puck does not reach the goal line, then the face-off will be at center ice. Why is the ref blowing the whistle if the puck has not yet reached the goal line? See, this is why I'm so baffled. I don't know if that was a typo or if the guy that wrote the article didn't understand the concept, or maybe the NHL just made this mistake, what this rule's for. I don't understand it at all.
Icing is already the most complicated rule in sports, and they just made it more complicated. But anyway, we are going to move on, Sean, because tomorrow, the New Jersey Devils and the New York Rangers, and I believe the New York Islanders, if I'm not mistaken, are all starting off their seasons tomorrow. Devils are playing the Pittsburgh Penguins. The New York Rangers are playing the Phoenix Coyotes. And who are the Islanders playing?
The Islanders are playing... Give me a minute. The Islanders are not playing.
Oh.
Good call.
Well, the Devils and Rangers, either way, are opening up their season Thursday night. So,
wee bit of news for the Devil Penguin game. Coy Schneider will be starting instead of Marty Brodeur. As you probably heard, unfortunately, Marty Brodeur's dad, Dennis,
I believe it might be Denis,
it's French. He passed away, about a week ago, 5 days,
Yes.
something like that. So Brodeur flew up to Montreal. From what I heard, he was actually too late and he didn't get to see his dad before his dad passed. But I read that he did get to spend some time when he was up there for the preseason game. So that's good. But anyway, Brodeur's opted to just take an extra day, clear his mind, get back into the swing of things physically on the ice. So instead of starting in Pittsburgh on Thursday, he will be starting for the home opener on Friday against
the Islanders.
the Long Island Islanders. So, but it's going to be Cory Schneider against the Penguins, so it's going to be a great game. Like you said, that's tomorrow, and then right after the Rangers are playing the Phoenix Coyotes, who are still in Phoenix and not Seattle for some reason.
If they expanded, then Seattle may be one of the first teams to get a new team. But, Phoenix, as you predicted, Sean, the Phoenix Coyotes, you have them slated to make the playoffs.
Right.
So certainly something for Glendale to cheer about. I mean, I personally am kind of happy that the Coyotes are still in Phoenix. I think that even though it's in warm weather, they deserve a hockey team. But and besides, they could beat the Rangers tomorrow, which will be great for the Devils in the Metropolitan Division.
There's going to be a lot of teams beating the Rangers today. You want to get into the predictions really quick? Playoff?
Yeah, just go over them briefly, I guess. Sean Clancy has predictions for who will finish in the Eastern and Western conferences.
Pick a division, Anthony.
Let's start with the Metropolitan Division.
Let's save it for last. Pick a different one.
Okay, what is the other one in the East? The Atlantic?
I don't want to start in the East. Pick a different one.
Okay, fine. Pacific Division.
We'll start with the Central Division.
Okay.
So in the Central Division, the top three teams that I have making the playoffs, obviously the Chicago Blackhawks. I have them at 110 points, but right behind them, the St. Louis Blues. The Blues put together an awesome team, I think. They're going to be one of the most balanced teams in the league. Yaroslav Halak, I think he's going to be the bona fide starter this year. I think he's going to have a great season. I actually think come the end of the year, Yaroslav Halak might be in the contention for the Vezina race.
Yeah, Halak said he had a very busy offseason. I think he decided to stay in the United States, which was very different than his usual routine. So I agree with you, Sean. I think Yaroslav Halak will definitely be a goaltender to watch out for this season.
And then the Winnipeg Jets, I have them making the top three, securing a playoff spot in the Central. They've got a great crop of forwards. If the defense can stay healthy, they've got good defensemen, I think. Pavlik. Pavlik didn't start off so sharp last night's game, but he looked solid. I've always liked Pavlik. And then there's Mark Scheifele, who I picked to be Rookie of the Year. I don't even know how to say his name because I've never heard of him. But guess what? He's going to be Rookie of the Year, and he's a big reason why I have Winnipeg in the top three. Jump over to the Pacific Division in the West, and we're looking at the Los Angeles Kings. I think the Kings are going to get the first overall seed. They still have a great team. Right behind them, Edmonton. I've been saying for the last couple years, Anthony, that one of these days, Edmonton's offense is just going to explode. They're still going to give up a lot of goals, but they're going to be scoring a heck of a lot of goals, too.
And you know what? I say that NHL's hit show Oil Change will last longer than The Simpsons. But that's my opinion.
Didn't they just, isn't The Simpsons about to start another season?
Or are they on 20-something? I mean, that's probably how long Edmonton's going to have it. I think the Oil Change finale is going to be like Taylor Hall's retirement ceremony or something. I don't know.
And then I also got the Vancouver Canucks in there. Johnny Torts. And then for the wild card in the Western Conference, there's 2 wild card spots. I think both of these wild cards are going to come out of the Pacific Division also. The San Jose Sharks, they're going to be, just behind. I think they're going to be around the low 90s in terms of points. They're going to pick up a wild card. And then I have Phoenix also at 88 points. I think they're going to secure a wild card spot. Teams that just miss it, Minnesota is just going to be behind Phoenix, I think. But Minnesota, Colorado, Anaheim, teams like this, I just don't think they have all the pieces in place. I don't think Minnesota has the offensive depth. But those are my teams in the West to make the playoffs. So look for Phoenix and San Jose to be wild card teams.
I think if there's one team that may be closer, actually even make the playoffs, I think it's the Dallas Stars. Because I know we discussed this before, Sean. I feel like the Stars have not too many superstars. I mean, but they do have Tyler Seguin. They have Jamie Benn, among some other forwards, very talented. And I think they also have a somewhat deep lineup. And they have Sergei Gonchar on defense, among some others. So I think that all around they have a pretty good lineup. And they have Kari Lettinen in net, who's a very capable goalie. And I think they might surprise some people.
Well, they might surprise me. Last year I had Winnipeg finishing around where I have Dallas finishing this year, and you said, nope, Winnipeg, they're going to be a pretty good team. And they ended up being a pretty good team. They, I think, came pretty close to making the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So this is Anthony's dark horse team, the Dallas Stars. Pay attention to them, too. Jumping over to the Eastern Conference now, we have the very competitive Atlantic Divisions and Metropolitan Divisions. Starting in the Atlantic, because the Metropolitan Division is an embarrassment of a name for a division. So we'll start with the Atlantic Division. Your President's Trophy team is going to be the Ottawa Senators this year, I believe. At 111 points, I think Carlson's going to have a career year. I think Spets is going to have a great year. I think they have great depth. They have good defense. They have Craig Anderson, he's going to be in contention for a Vezina Trophy. So look for Ottawa to be very good. And then right behind them, you have Boston and Detroit, 2 teams that have proven over the last several years that they're well-built teams. They're well-run organizations. They're consistently successful. So look for them to be in the top 3. Jumping over to the Metropolitan Division, Pittsburgh Penguins. I don't think there's anybody that doubts the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to win this division. Right behind them, and I've gotten a little bit of backlash for this, but I have the Washington Capitals at 101 points, finishing second in the Metropolitan Division. I think they have a good team. I think they could finish with anywhere between 45, 48 wins. Then right behind them, New Jersey Devils, very, very underrated team. During the offseason, like you said, Anthony, you saw a lot of predictions that had them at the bottom of the standings. That's not going to be the case, ladies and gentlemen. So look for the Devils to be in the top 3. And then the 2 wild card teams that I have in the Eastern Conference will both be coming out of the Atlantic Division. I have Montreal and Toronto both making the playoffs as wild card teams. Teams that'll be just missing, the New York Rangers. I think they're going to finish with 89 points, which is not going to be quite enough to make it into the playoffs. Islanders are going to have a good year at 87 points. The Tampa Bay Lightning, if their offense can hold up and if their defense, if their goaltending can come around, the defense can have a somewhat average year for once, then Tampa Bay might not be a bad team. And the Flyers. The Flyers are one team that everybody's saying is one of the top dogs in the Metropolitan Division. I think they're going to finish in 7th place out of 8. So look for the Flyers to do nothing special whatsoever this year. So those are my predictions for the most part. Anthony, you have any predictions? Any questions about my predictions?
I guess this might be a little bit of biasness, but I also think that the Islanders will definitely make the playoffs.
Okay.
The only thing is, though, I'm not too sure who they would replace. I mean, if anything, out of the 3 New York teams, I think the Devils and the Islanders will be the 2 most likely to make it, because you have to look at the Islanders. They are a team on the rise. They have a great forward core. They have John Tavares. They have Matt Molson, Josh Bailey, Franz Nielsen, Casey Cizikas. I think is going to be a hugely underrated player. They have a solid goaltender in Evgeny Nabokov. He's getting up there in age, but he still has plenty of left in the tank. And they still have a very decent defense, even without Mark Streit. Lomir Vishnofsky will probably be the best defenseman for the Islanders, at least offensively, too. So I think that the Islanders will be the dark horse team in the East.
All right, you heard it from Anthony. Keep an eye on the Islanders. Now, what we have to talk about, Anthony?
The Devils' opening night?
Friday night. Are you going to the game, Anthony?
I'm not too sure about that one.
I have to ask you a question, Anthony.
Are you?
I am 100% going to the game. I have 8 tickets. I finally found 8 people to go to the game, so I'm very excited. It's going to be a great time. And oh my God, was it a long wait, but it's only 2 more days. Marty Brodeur is going to be starting in net. Now, here's my question for you, though. In preseason games, because I've only ever been to one preseason game, do they do like the whole intro video and everything? Like, do they do the whole pregame presentation?
Yeah.
The lighting effects and everything? They do? Okay. Don't tell me anything about it, okay? Because that's one of my favorite things opening night is to see the whole new presentation that they put together. And I'm really rooting for Hell's Bells to be back in this intro. I don't know if it's going to be. Anthony better not tell me if it is or not. It's going to be a surprise for me. But this is the Devils theme song. Listen to this, Anthony.
Love that song.
And they haven't played this song since the 10-11 season. That was the last time they used this song in the intro. Ever since then, they've still been they still chime the bells, but then they've been playing a different song. And it hasn't been. I'll admit, last year the whole pregame intro was I liked it a lot, but the best one was at 10-11 when they had Hell's Bells going and everything. So I hope they go back to that. I hope they at least still ring the bells. And it'd be great, too, because my girlfriend, who I'm bringing out to the game, she's a big AC/DC fan. So, nothing but good things can happen if they play Hell's Bells by AC/DC. Speaking of pregame intros now, I don't know if anybody out there saw the Chicago Blackhawks banner ceremony, and beforehand, they did this thing where they used the ice as like a 200-foot screen for like a video slideshow kind of thing, showing the Blackhawks celebrating with the Stanley Cup and everything. During that, they were playing that song, "Light It Up" or something by Fall Out Boy. I don't know. And but what they did was they gave all the fans these wristbands, and these wristbands were like synced up to the whole presentation that they prepared. So like the whole arena would like flash red and white along with the song. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen. Chicago fans are some really lucky people. I watched the entire banner ceremony. It was incredible. So good for the Chicago fans. But I'm hoping the Devils intro is just as great. I hope the first game is just as great. And I hope as many people that are listening right now, I hope you're all trying to get out there to opening night. It's going to be a great time. I'm going to be there. I will not be signing autographs, but I will be in the building. I'll be taking pictures. So if you want to stop, and I'll be taking pictures.
Just like Chico Resch at the Fire Lounge.
Yes.
But speaking of Sean, we're going to now wrap it up with everyone's favorite segment, Clancy's Crease, for all the news in the goaltending world. Sean, what do you have this week?
Okay, Anthony. Well, there's not a whole bunch of news in terms of, the goaltending around the league. The one big thing is the Penguins goalie, backup goalie, Vokoun. He's out 3 to 6 months following surgery to dissolve a blood clot. So they're saying he's going to miss 3 to 6 months. That's a pretty big interval. If it ends up on the longer end of that 6 months, that could be looking at maybe missing the entire season. So I'm not sure who's next on the Penguins goalie chart there, but expect Fleury to be playing a lot of games this year. It's going to be up to Fleury. He's going to have to prove that he can regain the form that he had when he led the Penguins to the Stanley Cup 2 years in a row. So a lot on the shoulders of Marc-Andre Fleury in Pittsburgh. And Vokoun, unfortunately, and I like Vokoun too. I like watching him, but he's not going to be around very much this year, so that's unfortunate for him. That's all I got for you, Anthony. Oh, there was one thing I wanted to ask you. You said the Devils-Rangers preseason game. You did not see the trivia quiz question that they asked, so we're going to ask it here. And just in case there's anybody listening that didn't see it, didn't hear it, this is the trivia quiz question. Because they were talking about Brodeur and Schneider, how they're both going to be playing a lot of games this year. So they asked, what was the last season that the Devils had 2 20-win goalies?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Which season? Now, I got this question right, and as bonus points, I named the 2 goalies also. Let's see if you can.
Okay, let's see. I think it was 2008-2009 with Scott Clemson and Kevin Weeks.
That's a good guess. I think it was either Steve or Chico that guessed that, too. That's...
okay. So I guess I'm guessing it wasn't that answer.
Oh, okay. So you get 2 guesses now. Oh.
Well, no.
Anthony gets 2 guesses, people.
I want to see if I can get this right, though. All right. So if it wasn't then, I'm guessing it must have been back in the 90s because obviously Brodeur was starting all the games in this era. So did it happen to be Chris Terreri and John Van Beesbrook?
You're close. You are close, but...
okay, tell me the answer.
The answer is the 93-94 season, Brodeur's rookie season. Because I don't know because this is what I remembered. I remembered reading somewhere that Brodeur had split that season with another goalie. I wasn't sure who the goalie was.
I'm pretty sure it might have been Terreri.
It was Terreri. That was just a guess, and it ended up being right. So it was Brodeur and Terreri. They both broke 20 wins in the 93-94 season. And I remember, too, that was a good season because the Devils made the playoffs, and they eventually got knocked out by the eventual Stanley Cup champions who will remain nameless.
Mateau.
Yeah.
Wait, he's on the Devils now.
This
Stefan
one will
Mateau.
last a lifetime. Yeah, it's going to have to.
Stefan Mateau. Or
Stefan.
Or no, Mike. Is it Mike Motto? No.
What are you talking about, Mike Motto?
No. Stefan Mateau's son. Isn't he on the Devils now?
Yeah, and his name is Stefan Mateau.
It is Stefan Mateau. Okay.
Mike Motto.
That's a different player.
Mike Motto's still around?
I don't think so.
I miss him.
But anyway, that wraps up this week's edition of Hockey at the Hall. The season has now begun. So be sure to tune in next week as we'll hopefully talk about how well the Devils are playing and how not well the Rangers are playing.
And be sure, I'm going to give myself a little plug here. Be sure to check on the Hockey at the Hall website to see my full predictions for this upcoming season.
He even predicted the NHL 15 cover athlete. He really went deep with this one.
Oh, I go deep, Anthony. I go very deep. It's got everything, though. It's got standings predictions. It's got awards predictions. It's got how many goals each team's going to score. It's got everything. And it's got my Stanley Cup prediction on there, too. So go check it out. Make sure you keep up with Hockey at the Hall. Buy our T-shirts. And we'll see you next week. Just kidding. We don't have T-shirts.
Well, be sure to tune in next week for the next episode of Hockey at the Hall.
We'll have T-shirts soon.